doughs. We're making a Christmas pizza wreath. This is a little bit special, this one. It is a little bit of effort to make your own dough, but I promise you, you're going to love it. It's totally worth it. Now, I made a margarita pizza in my 99 Ninja Foodies cookbook, and I'm going to be using the same recipe for the dough. So if you haven't seen that, then just follow along. This dough is absolutely beautiful. I make this time and time again. So I have got my mixer bowl here. You can do this by hand. I'm going to be using my mixer with a dough hook. If you want to do it by hand, it's absolutely fine. So don't worry about that. Okay, let's put our scales on to start with. And we now need to start measuring everything into here. Okay, so the first thing is just simply some water, and you want that to be warm, and that's 250 millilitres that I've put into there. We then need some honey. Going to want to measure in a tablespoon of honey, and that really does work so well in this dough. Just give that a little mix. Okay, that's the honey in. We need some olive oil. It's quite easy to remember because there's another tablespoon. Let's get our yeast, and that's the reason we're using warm water, because that's going to activate our yeast for us. So let's get one of these little sachets. And you want to make sure it's these fast action, dried yeast, the instant yeast, and a tablespoon. It should be around one of those sachets. Ish. Yeah, about 7, I think they're 7 grams. Let me check for you. Yeah, they're 7 grams, so a tablespoon. And then give that a little stir. So just stir all of that yeast into the warm water and the other ingredients in there. And where's my salt? There you go. We need a little bit of salt in here as well. Around a teaspoon. I'm just going to grind it in. Just going to set that aside, and that will start to activate while we just measure out the other ingredients. So bowl on the scales here. Let's just measure out our flour. Now I do my flour in 2 parts. We want 400 grams of plain flour total. But to start with, I only want to put half the flour in. So let's just measure the 200 to start with. I love making this. My son's going to be so happy tonight. He's got his girlfriend coming over, and we're putting the Christmas tree up. So we're getting super festive, and I can't wait to get my Christmas lights all up in my kitchen for everything to look really pretty. So that is 200 grams in there. Now we're going to just move over to my mixer. Okay, so first lot of flour goes into the liquid. Now this is going to create a really sticky dough. Don't worry, it's exactly as it's meant to be. So dough hook down. Let's give that a little mix. And as that comes together, it's going to, like I said, be super sticky. It's not going to be a proper dough. The reason that I do the flour in 2 stages is because I may not need the full 400 grams. So I'm going to go and measure out another 200 grams. We're just going to add that second 200 grams little by little and use the amount we need until we get the right consistency. I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so that is super, super wet and sticky. So let's add some of that flour in, and we'll just start mixing again. So the dough will become smooth and less sticky. And obviously you can get your hands in to check the consistency of that. You can see already how that is changing in there. I think a little bit more. You can see how that is kind of moving, holding together. It's smoother. Less sticky. Okay, we're going to stop it and have a check. Okay, still is quite sticky, stickier than I'd like. So a little bit more of that flour, and we go again. Okay, so when it is ready, you should be able to just pick it up, and it's going to be sticky, but it's not going to be as sticky as it was. So yeah, it's still quite a sticky consistency. You can add a little bit more flour to it if you want, when you're kind of working with the dough. But that is coming together. It's nice and smooth. So, I mean, I more or less used all the flour. I've got the tiniest amount left. So I'm going to leave the dough in there for now, and I'm just going to cover it over. Just going to leave it for 10 minutes, and that will start to get a little bit of a rise, because we want this pizza dough to be just soft, bouncy, aerated. You know, this is going to make a nice deep pan. So cover that over. I'll be back in 10. Okay, so I've had that covered up. To be honest, it has had longer than 10 minutes because I've been doing some other things. But look at the size now of that dough. I would say that has doubled. So you can really leave it as long as you want, but sort of a minimum of 10 minutes, I would say. Or wait until you're happy with the size of it. So let's tip that out. It's going to need a little bit of help. I'm using these mats that I've got from Amazon. You may have seen them previously on some of my other videos. If you haven't, then they are linked below. So below is a link which takes you over to my website. And on my website, I have got a full accessories page of everything I recommend. And I love these. Anything pastry, any dough. They're great because it just, doesn't stick. And you can work with your dough, which is brilliant. So we have got quite a large amount of dough here. Quite often I cut this in half and I make 2 pizzas out of it. But let's have a look at the size, because we want to make a decent sized wreath. So I want to make sure that this goes all the way to the edge, but we need that hole in the middle. And I do actually want it to be a fairly thick crust. And that's a nice thing with this dough. You can have a play around with it. So let's cut a chunk off like that, I think. And then we can leave that covered on the crisper plate until we are ready to actually bake this. And that's going to give us a little bit more rise on this dough as well by doing that, because I've kind of knocked the air out of it by playing around with it, haven't I? I do find that this is quite enjoyable to make. I do like making pizzas. So let's stretch that out a bit more. Stretch that bit out. And then we can try and join it. And then let's try and get it fairly equal. Now the non-stick on this crisper plate is really good. So I don't think I'm going to need anything underneath it, like a piece of parchment. Depending on what you're using, you may want to put some parchment underneath. So that's, again, up to you. Okay, bearing in mind that this is going to expand, I feel like that is a better amount of dough in there now. Okay, so we can kind of push that down. We just want to make sure that we've got that nice ring in the middle, nice big circle there, so that it actually looks like our wreath. Brilliant. I am happy with that for now. I'm going to cover that over. So I'm going to save this. Don't waste this. This can be used another time. So cling film that over and you can make some garlic bread. You can make some pizza. There's loads of things you could do with this, to be honest. I mean, you could just make some cheesy bread, you know, whatever you fancy, you can do that with that. So let's reuse my piece of cling film and cover this over. Okay, so I'm now ready to air fry the base. Air fry your pizza base on 200 degrees centigrade for 4 minutes. Flip it over and continue cooking for another 2 to 3 minutes. So now we're going to decorate this pizza. So get your tomato sauce and just spread that over the top of your pizza. Obviously, you can add as much or as little as you like. This really is a gorgeous, fluffy pizza base. I love this. Let's get a little bit more over there. You want to have plenty of tomato sauce. And I like to make sure that it's going to the edges. Okay, so now we have got our little cherry tomatoes, which I have cut in half. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate a cherry tomato with some mozzarella balls. I mean, to be honest, when I say alternate, there really is no right or wrong. I might just go a little bit random on this. Let's just fit in what we can. And these are going to burst and be absolutely full of flavour. These were vine ripened tomatoes. They smell so good and make the most delicious topping on your pizza. You can change this up, add different things if you wish to. It's really up to you what you put on top. But this idea is to make it look like a wreath. So we've got these mozzarella balls, which I'm just going to place all over the top of the pizza as well. But before I go too far, I've forgotten the shredded mozzarella. Let's just take these little balls off for a second. Don't make the same mistake as me. Make sure you get your mozzarella on the top there. So you can just put that in between your tomatoes, or you can put this on first. Made a bit of an error there, didn't I? Almost forgot it totally. Got to have that nice grated mozzarella on there. Now I'm going to be adding some basil to this, but I'm going to add that at the end. If you want to add some pesto onto this, that would be lovely as well. You can definitely add some meat as well if you want to. That looks better, doesn't it? That looks more like it. Now let's add the mozzarella balls. And this is really quite well loaded, this pizza. Oh yes, this looks so nice. So this is just sitting on top of the Ninja rack, and that works really well. And this is definitely a fun thing to make with children or grandchildren. We are nearly there. I think we are more or less loaded. I don't think I can get much more onto that. Look at that. That is pretty fully loaded. You can put a little bit of parsley over the top, or basil, like this. We can add a little bit of black pepper as well. And that is ready to go back onto air fry. Now I'm going to turn the temperature down. I'm going to go with 180, and really until this is cooked enough. So that could be sort of 5 to 10 minutes.